Hi YouTube! Welcome back to The Future Is Now. If you're not familiar, this is a mini-series where we optimize the first 5 maps of Lunatic difficulty in Fire Emblem Awakening. Today we're tackling Chapter 3, and I'll link the episodes on the prologue, Chapter 1, and Chapter 2 in the description, so you can check them out in case you haven't seen them. The goal today is the same as it was in those videos. Complete the map as quickly and reliably as possible, while showing off the unique abilities of a plus speed Robin, and sharing strategies to train and use the units we get along the way. Also, all my units will have their average stats for their level, just to show what they'll typically be capable of in the majority of playthroughs. When the whole project's done, the result will be something of a guide that can help new players find their way when trying Lunatic mode for the first time, and maybe help more knowledgeable players learn something too. Before we start, one point of housekeeping. A couple of people have suggested that I extend the series to cover Paralog 1 and Chapter 5, since those are usually also seen as some of the game's harder maps. I'm not opposed to that idea. I have a lot of fun making these videos, and I think those two maps are great places to showcase the payoff of a well-played early game. If you'd be interested in seeing me covering them, let me know in the comments, and I'll add them to my pipeline. Right now though, let's jump into Chapter 3. Chapter 3 finally gives us access to the preparation screen. That has a few benefits. We can move our unit's starting positions around, we can outfit their inventories without the need for on-map trade shenanigans, and most importantly, it saves me a lot of work on editing map and unit introductions. The prep screen also gives us a new variable to consider: deployment slots. This chapter lets you bring 8 units and we have 9 in our army, so we have to leave someone on the bench. Chrom is force deployed, and Robin, Lissa, and Frederick are shoo-ins, but besides them, anyone else can be a decent choice to drop depending on who you've trained up to this point and what your plans are going forward. For most runs, that leaves the options to bench for this map as one of the Cavaliers, Muriel, or Virion. In my case, because I'm planning on moving around the map pretty quickly, Sully and Stall are both indispensable, especially since Sully can survive a round of combat unpaired at base, and Stall can with the right pair-up. I didn't really train Vake in Chapter 2, but if you did, he can be a great asset here against the soldiers and archers. Besides that, he's a phenomenal pair-up for any of our other units. I raised Muriel last map, so she's coming for sure, but generally she's a good, reliable option to hit enemies at 2 range, and she targets res, which is really nice against the knights here. Virion is an even more accurate 2 range option, and he's got a higher damage ceiling than Muriel because his iron bow has good might, and he can benefit from Vake's +4 strength on pair-up, but he's nowhere near as good into the knights. Muriel was my investment target of choice in Chapter 2, and I don't find you usually need more than 2 ranged attackers here outside Lunatic Plus, so that leaves Virion as the odd man out. He'll get to do some more work later in the series though. Base Virion is a much better unit than a lot of people realize. Let's take a look at the map. It's meant to be kind of a breather after the complexity and difficulty of Chapters 1 and 2. To that end, it somewhat breaks form with the tutorials those maps presented. The prologue and the first 2 chapters iterated on basic concepts in increasingly layered ways, teaching the player how to defend without getting overwhelmed and aggress without overextending, how to deal with terrain, and how to get enemies to target who you want them to. Chapter 3 is much simpler, but teaches a new concept that'll be useful a little later on in the campaign: how to fight in cramped or restrictive spaces. We start out surrounded by 2 groups of aggressive enemies on our flanks and a solid wall to our north. That means we have to fight off one group before the other closes in, and we only have 3 tiles of vertical space to do it in. Previous maps had us fighting off aggressive waves of enemies, but only ever on one front, and we always had much more freedom of movement than we do here. When we're done on the ground level, we can take one of 2 single tile wide staircases up to a door leading to the 2nd floor of the fort, where we'll have to fight another wave of enemies. To get XP on our training projects without too much slowdown, we'll have to position ourselves in such a way that we can get up our staircase of choice without causing a traffic jam. Sure, we could turtle up in the doorway and feed all the kills to Frederick or Robin, but that slows you down a lot, and it's less effective long term than using the 2nd wave to train other units. For my money, it's also way less fun, so we'll be charging in headlong. Raimi is the first boss since the prologue that doesn't move, which means she's a convenient bag of XP for anyone we want to give her to. She's also the last stationary boss in a main chapter for a while, so don't get used to that. Like in Chapters 1 and 2, random enemy movement was a stumbling block in figuring out this clear, but the exact moves I make here are going to work regardless of how enemies decide to move. For example, on his first turn, if no one is in his attack range, this knight will either move right 4 or right 4 and up 2, and there's no way to constrain his choice. No matter which way he goes though, we'll always be able to attack him from this square and this square, so even though his movement is random, it doesn't actually matter. What does matter about the knights is their ability to randomly roll defense +2. To make our strategy consistent no matter what loadouts the enemies have, we need to make sure we kill each knight in the same number of attacks regardless of whether or not they have this skill. It's the same idea with the fighters on the top floor who can roll HP plus 5. In both cases, we can never do attacks that they would survive if they had rolled a skill but die to if they didn't. For the knights specifically, this makes our mages, Robin and Muriel, very valuable, since physical damage can randomly be reduced by 2 but their magical damage can't be. This chapter is going to be where we first see the true potential of a plus speed avatar. With a C rank pair up from a Crom who has at least 10 speed, our Robin will be able to double every enemy on this map except for the mercenaries. That's a feat a defense boon Robin could only dream of. You might be thinking, I mean, sure, he can double most of the enemies, but he's still pretty weak without Muriel's pair-up, so he still won't be one-rounding anything. And you'd be right, especially since in this series I'm not allowed to make moves that would require dual strikes. Speed boon Robin's strength isn't in their destructive power though. They don't get that until much later on. Instead, it's in the fact that they can do so much damage to an enemy without killing them that basically any other unit will be able to take the kill and get the XP for themselves. In this way, Robin can sort of become a second Frederick. Not in the sense that they can charge into a group of 4 enemies and expect to be fine, they absolutely can't, but in the sense that they can be used to set up kills for someone with a single move. That improves your action economy tremendously if you're trying to invest in 1 or more training projects, like we are here, and it also provides a lot of flexibility with how you position your troops. For example, we can afford to play a lot more aggressively if our Robin can attract 1 enemy and simultaneously weaken them enough to kill in 1 action the next player face. I can talk about tactics as much as I want, but there's no substitute for hands-on experience. Let's get started. On turn 1, we're joined by Sumia. She's the only new unit we get in this chapter, but she's arguably the one who benefits the most from having a fast Robin to enable her training. Sumia is our first Pegasus Knight, and that gives her a ton of useful qualities. Most obviously, she can fly, which isn't particularly important right now, but it will be for a lot of maps in the Gangrel arc. Her support also gives a lot of speed, and that's much more immediately impactful. She gives plus 4 even with no support rank, which is equivalent to Crom with either a C support or enough raw speed to give an extra point. That's fantastic, because our access to good speed pair-ups this early is very limited. We have Crom, of course, and I've had Robin because mine is plus speed, but you won't even have that if you're doing something like plus defense or plus magic. Sumia affords us a lot more versatility with our pairings because whoever wants a speed bonus isn't forced to carry Crom around now, and that really benefits units like Vake, Stahl, and Frederick. That's not even including Crom himself, who likes having more opportunities to be on the field, gaining XP for his own purposes. For her part, Sumia has very suspect combat at base. She gets one-shot by every non-mercenary enemy on this map, but that can be fixed by any defense pair-up. Like I mentioned, Speed Boon Robin also generates a lot of chances to set up last hits for Sumia where she won't have to take a counter anyway. For this reason alone, she works best on teams with a plus speed Robin because she has an easier time getting her snowball rolling now compared to teams running plus defense or any other boon. Once she does get started though, she's hard to stop. She has good movement and effortlessly hits doubling thresholds the whole game. She's also one of the only 3 first generation units that it's really worth it to have pursue Gale Force, both for herself and to pass down to her kids. The others are Robin, who can only do it if she's female and takes a second seal, and Cordelia, who comes much later and can't mother Lucina. During the Volmark, enemy bowmen become incredibly common, which is usually a real problem for combat flyers, but Sumia has a solid workaround to this. Reclassing to Great Knight gives her huge boosts to her HP, strength, and defense, on top of getting rid of her bow weakness and giving her complete weapon triangle control. She won't be able to hard carry the late game since she doesn't have any sustain, but she'll be able to consistently contribute with great player phase flexibility via Gale Force, high power that's sometimes augmented by Luna, and enough bulk to fight a few enemies every enemy phase. Alternatively, she can work with much less investment and become a great support unit by promoting to Falcon Knight. Flying staff utility is absurd in the second half of this game. Going this route still doesn't neuter her combat. Falcon Knight has better promotion bonuses than Dark Flyer, and staves give her access to an uncontested source of XP, letting her keep growing by casting Rescue while letting other units kill more of the enemies themselves. That can get her to Lance Fair in decent time, which makes her much stronger whether she decides to stay in Falcon Knight or transition to Great Knight. Her support list is very limited compared to other first-gen units, but her dating pool does contain a couple of excellent options. Crom bolsters her average attack power with his frequent dual strikes, and she's the only unit besides female Robin that can realistically pass Gale Force down to Lucina. On the other hand, Frederick's pair-up gives her big bonuses to her strength and defense, while she lends him the speed he needs to double throughout the Gangrel arc and can carry him over terrain that's annoying for his horse. The pair give each other everything they could ever ask for, and while Cynthia won't be the best, she still won't be bad. Some of Sumia's later joining options can also be fun for Apotheosis if that's your thing, particularly Gaius and Henry. Overall, I do think Sumia is one of the best units in the game, but people tend to praise her for a lot of the wrong reasons. She does require some attention to get going early on, and contrary to popular belief, Darkflyer really isn't a great class for her to be in, especially after Chapter 11 when more enemies start carrying weapons effective against it. Despite that though, her availability, support options, stat line, and class access give her a confluence of traits and a level of versatility that very few members of Awakening's cast can match. Sumia doesn't have anything to do right now, but she'll get a lot of action this chapter, don't worry. Sully's going to start us off by pairing into Robin, because we need her starting square free.
We can do this.
Crom hands the javelin off to Fred, then hitches a ride with him to fight the nearest archer. He gives Fred a +5 speed bonus, which is enough to double if Fred has gained speed once.
I have your back.
Robin moves to distract 2 enemies from Fred, and everyone else gets into position for the next turn.
Enter the Vake.
Get ready! Now or never!
Let's do this.
Since the soldier is first in the move order, he'll attack Robin and block the only space the archer could use to shoot Muriel, so she's totally safe. Without the extra defense from Sully's C support, Robin would be getting 2 KO'd, but with it, he's just fine. Liz is going to heal him up so the Northern Archer won't try to kill him on enemy phase. Robin and Muriel team up to kill this knight. Remember that he can either be southeast or northwest of where Robin moves, but our mages will be able to hit him from the positions they take here either way.
I've got you.
I'll take notes from here.
Careful.
Fred and Sumia pass Vake around so that he can get the soldier into range for her to kill.
Stand tall.
Careful.
Fred's going to want more defense next turn, so we separate Crom from him now.
Right. I'll be around.
Lissa heals Robin again, and Sumia positions herself so that he can take the vulnerary she brought and top himself up.
Look out!
Muriel and Crom get out of harm's way, and Fred's going to use the Silver Lance to soften up the incoming wave from the east.
Stay focused.
Formulate a plan.
Good luck.
I want Sumia and Crom to unlock their C support after this map, so they pair up and use the Javelin to kill the Merc. Crom equips his Rapier just to improve reliability in case the Merc rolls patience.
Go get him!
Robin pulls Crom and shows off his ability to double this soldier with a speed boon. Before he does though, he takes the javelin from Sumia, because Fred is going to want it in a second. After Robin's attacks, the soldier is in range for Mirio to kill, so she pulls Crom to improve her consistency and picks up a level.
My steel is yours.
Crom wants in on the training too, so Fred's going to use the javelin to facilitate that.
Who goes first?
If we ended the turn here, the last soldier would go for Crom, but I want Sumia to get that XP. Stall is going to help us out.
You can do it.
We're using this turn to get into position to open the door and surge in next player phase. First, Fred is going to hitch a ride with Crom and use the convoy to get our new heal staff over to Lissa.
As one.
Crom moves one short of his max movement and drops Fred to the north. This way, if Fred uses his full movement next turn, he'll be able to reach a key tile, and he's still close enough that Lissa can reach him to heal him from the north. Everyone else moves closer to the door and separates from their pair-up partners to maximize the actions we can take next turn.
Changes what?
Could be trouble.
Mirio starts us off by opening the door.
I have your back.
Fred moves as far northwest as he can and chips the knight from a position that will also aggro the other enemies upstairs. He could have done this from the knight's southeast instead, but if he did that, the nearby merc, archer, and fighter would all have chances to move randomly, which would be disastrous. Here, the merc only has a single square he can attack Fred from, and the other two will always move straight to the left since they won't have targets when they activate.
Get it together.
Robin cleans up after Fred. Frederick needed to use the javelin on player phase, but we want him to use the silver lance on enemy phase, so Vake has him equip it now. We also want Robin back at full health, so Sumia and Stall make that happen with a transfer chain. Mirio had to be the one to open the door so that Sumia would be able to get into position for this maneuver.
I've got you.
Sumia wants to kill the merc that Fred weakened on enemy phase. Crom heads to the north so that she can do that while building support with both of her best husbands.
Stay strong.
Now that he's not needed on the west side, Fred can chip this archer. Note that this position keeps him out of range of the hammer bro. Another kill made possible by Sully's C-rank pair-up bonuses.
Go get him!
Lissa gets a heal in, and Muriel hides behind Sumia.
You must persevere.
I want to point out that Robin doubles this fighter with Sully's pair-up, not even a dedicated speed backpack. Plus speed Robin is insane.
Stand tall.
Muriel chips this fighter. Sumia equips her Iron Lance just so that she can gamble for some extra weapon XP since her dual strike won't affect the calculus here.
Stay focused.
Crom would prefer to switch Vake out for Sumia to work on their support, but he needs the extra power to make sure he can kill the fighter if he rolls HP plus 5.
All right.
Robin and Sully head north to distract the archer. Like in Chapter 1, I just rigged the sparkle tile to be something that won't affect gameplay. Fred takes out his displeasure with having an armor weakness on the Hammer Bro. The archer can either end up directly south of Sully or to her southeast. Either way, Fred can move up one space and whack him with the iron sword. Here, he's also in position to fight the knight on enemy phase.
Stay with us.
Crom switches to Vake so Sumia can pull it. That way, she uses his support to double and finish the archer.
Apply yourself.
You can do it!
We want Sumia to get another enemy phase kill here, so Lissa heals her and Sully downs a vulnerary so she can block the Merc from getting to Vake.
Let's end this.
If Crom has at least 10 speed, which mine does, base Sumia doubles everything on the map with his pair up, including the Mercs, so Crom's dual strike made no difference here. Alright, it's time to engage Raimi, but first we need to deal with this knight.
Right behind.
Muriel hands off the fire tome to Robin so he'll have better hit rates against the boss, then makes sure Vake has his axe equipped. Even if she misses once, he'll have 2 chances to pick the kill up with his dual strike.
I'm right here.
Lissa comes over to top Robin off for the boss fight, and Fred's just here to build some support.
Shall we?
Crom and Sumia have nothing to do, so they just hang out, but the tile they do it on is going to be very important next turn. All that's left is to defeat Raimi and get out of here. There are a few things we need to consider before we do that though. First, Muriel and Stahl are a fraction of a support point away from unlocking their C support, and doing one round of combat together would get them there, so we may as well get that done now. If she's fighting the boss anyway, we should give her the kill, since that'll give her 53 XP, exactly enough to level up. On Lunatic difficulty though, enemies give 1 less XP for each time you fight them past 3 rounds of combat. Robin has already done 1 round with Raimi, which means we can only weaken her 1 more time before sending Muriel in for the kill. If we weaken her once with Robin and once with Fred, for example, Muriel's boss kill will be the 4th round of combat and she'll earn 52 XP, just barely missing out on the level. There are 2 slight problems. One, Muriel needs to be supported by Stahl during her combat to get their last support point, but he's with Lissa right now. And 2, Robin is the most reliable way to put Raimi in range for Muriel, but he needs the magic bonus from her pair up to do it. So we need to transfer people around in such a way that Stahl gets away from Lissa, Muriel can support Robin, and then Stahl can pull her from Robin for the kill. There are a few different ways to do this, so if you want, you can pause the video and find a solution yourself. If you do, let me know what you came up with. This was my answer. First, Lissa passes Stahl to Sumia and heals Robin so he can survive Raimi's counter. This is why it mattered where Sumia ended her last turn. She needed to be able to receive Stahl without moving on this phase.
Vanish timidity.
Muriel's going to switch to Vague so he can pass her off to Robin. Robin moves away from Fred because otherwise he'd be getting dual support bonuses from him, Muriel, and Vague. That would give Robin plus 10 crit and a chance to steal Muriel's XP, and we can't have that.
Hold on.
Sumia flies over, switches, and does the last transfer. Muriel takes the fire tome from Robin and finishes the map. And that's that. This map is a lot more complicated than usual under this series rule set. Since I want my strategies to avoid slowing down whenever it wouldn't improve consistency, there are actually a lot of precise moves in this clear that wouldn't be necessary if you were willing to give up one of speed, reliability, or training non-Robin units. I want to preserve all of those though, both because I want the strategies here to be easy to replicate and applicable to most runs, and because I strongly disagree with the idea that giving Robin the bulk of early game XP is the best or easiest way to play the game. The part of this clear that required the most planning was Sumia's training arc. I wanted her to get 2 levels here, but for her to do that without turtling, she needed to get 2 kills on enemy phase, which meant I needed to divert some of Lissa's attention to her instead of anyone else. Figuring out how to get enemies to attack her while keeping everyone else in position for their own training was a lot of fun. I initially only planned for Muriel to get 1 level on this map, but as it turns out, she's just too useful for her own good. Next time, we'll resolve the misunderstanding with the Feroxy Border Patrol and meet up with a mysterious stranger. Hopefully, I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.